Hey everyone, this is your homegirl Minty. Welcome to my segment on pandemic cooking. I'm going to be bringing you tips and recipes that have been handed down to me or some that I've found on the internet. I've tried it with my family and they've been family approved. So today I'm going to show you how to make home-style biscuits using two ingredients. The two ingredients are self-rising flour and heavy whipping cream. I've done this with my family before, as I said, and they tried it and they loved it. So I want you to also have that same experience, hopefully, with your own family. So some of the recipes that I'll be bringing to you will be anywhere from 2 to 5 ingredients, and it will range from sweet to savory. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring all the equipment and all the ingredients here on the island and show you how to make biscuits with 2 ingredients. Said this recipe has 2 ingredients. I probably should have said 3 because butter is one of the ingredients that I use in this recipe. So we have butter, we have heavy whipping cream, and we have self-rising flour. For this recipe, we're going to need the following equipment. We're going to need a biscuit cutter. If you don't have a biscuit cutter, you can use a glass or a jar. Just coat it in flour before you cut into the dough. We're going to have a spatula to mix everything up, and we're going to use 2 types of measuring cups. For flour or sugar, you're going to use the type of measuring cup that does not have a spout. If you're going to use liquids, then you're going to use a measuring cup that has a spout. So we covered the small utensils that we're going to use for the recipe. The bigger items that we're going to use is the rolling pin, the bowl, and the cast iron skillet. I like using a cast iron skillet, but if you don't have one, you can use a cake pan. This ingredient calls for 1 1/4 cup of self-rising flour. If you don't have self-rising flour at home, you can make your own. If you got all-purpose flour, you're going to use 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then you're going to have, let me take that back. I thought it was 1.5 cups, but actually it's just 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And then it's 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You whisk that all together, and then you put it in a airtight container, and it will store for about 6 months. Because if you leave it past that amount of time, then the baking powder will lose its potency and it won't allow your product to rise. So what I just done is I just put 1 3/4 cups of self-rising flour into the bowl. Now I'm going to put in 1 cup of heavy cream. Now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to stop for a minute because I want to start melting the butter. Alright, so I'm going to put half this butter into the skillet. I'm just going to let it melt a little bit. I'm not going to let it get brown. I'm just going to let it melt. And then I'm going to cut it off because I don't want the skillet or the butter to be too hot. Because once the biscuits are formed, if the skillet or the butter is too hot, it's going to loosen up the dough and I'm going to lose the shape of the biscuit, and I don't want that. I'm just going to melt it so I can dredge my biscuit in the butter. So while we're doing this, the oven is being preheated to 500 degrees. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to come along the sides. I want all that goodness to be reflected in that first bite that I take of my biscuit. Okay, as you can see, Everything is still yellow and it's still kind of creamy looking. Now I'm going to turn the skillet off and let it cool down. Now we're coming back to the table. So I have 1 3/4 cup of self-rising flour, and now I am about to pour in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. If you find that the dough, when you mix it, is still dry and it doesn't come together, then you're going to add, just going to make a well in the middle. You can add just a little bit more of the whipping cream. So you want to make sure that you just do maybe a tablespoon at a time if you feel like you got to add more. So I'm just going to bring it all together, make sure it's combined. It's going to resemble sticky biscuit dough that you would buy in the store. Look at that. And that's what you want. You don't want to see a lot of powder in your bowl. You want all that cream to pick that powder up. That's what you're going for. So if you see a lot of powder still in your bowl, it might be letting you know that you might need just a little bit more of the cream. You see right there? This is some extra flour. That's not what I want. So I'm going to see if I can work this in without having to get more cream in the bowl. Let's see what happens. So far, it's coming together. I'm not seeing a lot of this powder. I'm managing to get it all into the dough. Now, once I am satisfied that I have everything incorporated, I'm going to turn it out here on my cutting board. Okay? But before I do that, I'm going to put just a little bit of flour on the cutting board. So that's where this spoon came in handy. Spread that out somewhat and move it around. I don't want that much, so I'm moving some of it off to the side. I can use that for my rolling pin. So here we go. Turning it out. Look at that. Looks just like the biscuit dough you buy in the store. Okay. So now I'm going to knead it, and that's just really smoothing it out. Not too much, because I don't really want to overwork it. So there we go. There we go. Look at that. It's coming together just the way I want it. And it's not sticking to the cutting board. That's how you know that this is well incorporated. If it was sticking to the cutting board, you would just get a little bit of this flour, tap it on there, and just kind of dry it up a little bit. So there you go. It's nice and incorporated. Now this is the time when I will use my rolling pin. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my rolling pin because I don't want it to stick, the dough to stick to my rolling pin. So I'm going to just kind of spread this out a little bit. This recipe will make anywhere from 8 to 10 biscuits, depending on your cookie or your biscuit cutter and how thick you want your biscuits to be. Because I'm shooting for at least 10 biscuits, I'm going to spread this out a little bit more. All right. Now, when it comes to cutting out the biscuits, I'm going to use my biscuit cutter. I'm just going to coat it a little bit in flour. You would do the same thing if you had a glass or a jar. Take a little bit of this flour off. Now when you press down, that's all you do. You're not going to twist it because that will seal the size of the biscuit, and we don't want that. We want the biscuit to rise. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take these out and see what they look like. Oh my, isn't that nice? Look at that. So I'm going to take these biscuits and I'm going to now dredge these over in the butter. So follow me. So here we go. So the butter has cooled down. Look how pretty that is. Dredging it in there. Here's some more. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, now we got more biscuits to cut out. I think I'm going to get more than 10 biscuits today, which is nice. All right, again, don't want to overwork it too much. Put a little bit more flour on that rolling pin. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, look at us, still doing good. Let's bring it over to the cast iron skillet again. Oh my, isn't that just wonderful? Okay, perfect. And we got space for even more. Let's see how much. I think we probably could put maybe 3 or 4 more biscuits in there. Let's see what happens. Okay. All right, so let's see what I have here. So I have 1, 2, 3.